The number one story of the week is no, the new wallet Satoshi is not self-custodial. So maybe we talked too much on the last topic. This is from Blue Matt, Bitcoin Territory, July 1st, 21 comments, 10K boost, 2,881 sats. Keyan, what's Matt talking about this week?
Yeah, I think he's just disagreeing with the way that people are describing the new wallet of Satoshi, um, or what wallet of Satoshi is planning to do, which we just spent a lot of time talking about, which is it's not exactly self-custodial. Um, it is less custodial in certain ways that allow you to not have to KYC to use it, but it's if Spark can rob you, or Wallet of Satoshi can rob you, uh, I think that is not. It would be incorrect to call it self custody. So it's something else. It's not exact. It's maybe not exactly custodial. It's not exactly self custody. It's somewhere in between. Justin Shocknet has been calling it trustodial, um, which I
Trust.
think is probably probably the best term that I've heard for this, where you are trusting them to not rob you, because they have the ability to, uh, in certain situations. But it is, it is not. They don't have total unilateral control over the funds, assuming they're doing what they're saying, and assuming they're doing what they're saying, they can't rob you. Um, so it's way more complicated than self custody or not. I don't think the plebs probably won't care. I think they care. Can I get a wallet of Satoshi UX without KYCing? And that's the result that we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think that's all the plebs care. They just want clean UI, fast payments, and onboard their friends and sling sats to pay for things and not KYC. Yeah, but what's so? I guess my question is more on the technical side. How is this any different than Breeze or um, yeah, Breeze and then even kind of what I guess um, even kind of what Moon is doing, I guess, on the Lightning side. Because doesn't Moon do like submarine swaps or something like that?
Yeah. So in the case of Moon, they do a swap. You receive a Lightning payment, and it's actually you receive it to an on-chain address. And when you send your satoshis that you have in your Moon wallet, it takes on-chain satoshis and swaps it onto Lightning, and that's how it. So it's not really running a Lightning node. Similarly, with Breeze's SDK, their nodeless SDK, they do what Moon does, but they do it on Liquid, which has so one of the biggest problem with Moon was that they had high fees, especially when there was congestion on Bitcoin's main chain. So they actually became people stopped recommending it around the time where we had the like big ordinals boom in
Right.
like 2023, 2022, something like that. And so Breeze is like, well, Liquid has always had low fees and can will probably always have low fees. So why don't we use Liquid to do what Moon does in our nodeless SDK? And so that's what Breeze has been doing with their nodeless SDK. And so that Breeze's nodeless SDK has the trust assumptions that any product that uses Liquid has, which is where you're kind of relying on a majority of Federation members to. I this is my no. I don't really understand Liquid too well, but you're relying on a majority of Federation members in the Liquid Federation to behave honestly and honor, your consensus valid transactions and your withdrawal requests and things like that. Um, so that's the trust assumption there. And with Spark, I've been calling it Spark Chain. But Spark's state chain, Light Spark state chain, the what's happening is kind of similar in a way to both Moon and Liquid, only like the underlying chain that the swap is happening on is different, and it has different trust assumptions. And while Moon maybe has the best trust assumptions, where you're using on-chain Bitcoin, um, you might get you sort in this model you kind of get the best of both worlds with where you're dealing more with native Bitcoin stuff. You're not relying on Liquid to behave honestly, and you're not using wrapped Bitcoin, but you are still trusting Spark's coordinators, which, like Liquid, is a federation. But in an improvement on Liquid's federation, um, Spark's model only rather than the majority of the federation members behaving honestly for Breeze's nodeless SDK to do what you want. In in Spark, you only need one federation member, one honest federation member, um, to allow you to do what you want or do what you were promised you'd be able to do, which is that one federation member just has to delete old keys. They have to delete something, or that one federation member, yeah, has to get rid of those keys. At least according to Spark Stocks. I have not looked into this, but um, I believe that's true. I believe that, given the way Frost works and the way they've implemented it. So really, what we have is like a variety of ways to avoid running a Bitcoin node, because it's a Lightning node, because it's hard. And so what we want to do instead is we want to use a state chain, or we want to use submarine swaps. We can't submarine swap onto the base chain because it's expensive. We maybe don't want to submarine swap onto Liquid because it's wrapped Bitcoin, and it requires kind of trusting a lot, many more people, I think. Um, Although I can't say that too confidently. And so we have the state chain implementation, which I think improves on Liquid. Not as good as Moon, but better than Moon in terms of fees, and better on trust relative to Liquid. So I think you're in this, kind of nice, maybe this nice Goldilocks zone, and maybe why Spark has chosen to pursue this uh, project.
Yeah, and then the other alternative is, I guess, Phoenix, right? And that's just running your own node,
Yes.
leveraging Phoenix's LSP, right?
Hmm. Yeah. To get into that more, all of these, like Moon has an LSP, doing these submarine swaps, I would guess. Um, so does Breeze, so does Spark. They all have LSPs. The main difference is like what's happening on your phone. Like, are you opening channels to the LSP from your phone, from keys that you control on your phone that ultimately allow you full control over the Bitcoin? And neither Moon nor Breeze's nodeless SDK or Spark really allow you to do that in the way that you can do with Phoenix. It's way more self-sovereign to use Phoenix. So if you're really using Bitcoin a lot, for either your business or personal use, you should be using something like Phoenix if you're technically savvy enough. Um, just because you have more self sovereignty. It actually is self custody. You actually can unilaterally exit, and Phoenix can't rob you in the same way that
Right.
any of these other, in the same way that Spark can.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think you nailed it right there with how you explained all of that. Absolutely. I think that's the clearest picture on how to look at this. So I don't know if you saw the frost thing that got released this week with the signers. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, I forget what that's Frost Snap. Yeah, Frost Snap. Yeah, I saw that.
So I was talking to Nick in the lab this week, and he had a really interesting take on potentially using those as remote signers at some point in the future, specifically around Lightning nodes and stuff like that. Um, do you have any thoughts on that, Keon, or is that something that's so far out?
Oh, yeah, I think in the future um, we will see threshold, like multi-sig remote signing for Lightning. I definitely think we'll see that. I think that's sort of inevitable. We already, I mean, an LSP like Phoenix, like Async, they have, I think, like $100 million or something. I don't know. I don't actually know, but they have a lot of money on their LSP, and they've described in blog posts how they manage it. But they do it with remote signing. But a multi-sig, because you still don't want one remote signer to be able to spend $100 million to make that decision. You kind of want a federation of team members within Phoenix, um, to make the call, so that no person is going to rob everyone. I think we'll get there eventually. I don't know how it relates to FrostSnap. I think FrostSnap is mostly trying to do, like, make Bitcoin multi-sig a little easier. But
Could you see it
yeah,
even for
I
running
could see
your
them.
own node? For even running your own node, though, could you see something that you would use a remote signer if it gets too big?
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, no. That's what Blockstream has been working on. We haven't really seen Greenlight shine yet. I know Breeze was supposed to be using it, but I think their nodeless SDK took off, so they haven't been spending much time on it. But this is another solution that's like waiting to come to market. I think, that just it's a little bit of a harder problem to solve, because they're doing like the Phoenix thing, but slightly easier to use, but more complicated to build on the back end. But similarly, it actually gives you self custody, where you have the keys on your device, but the node is running somewhat. Blockstream is taking care of the node running part, and the liquidity management and stuff like that. So I think that'll come, and then eventually, yeah, we could get multi-sig remote signing for people running their own nodes, especially if they have a lot of money on them. You want multi-sig, like you want multi-sig for your self custody if you have a lot of money for security reasons.
Yeah, that's really fascinating to see kind of the Lightning space evolve in a way. Um, yeah, it's really fascinating. I feel like this week, especially, just seeing the FrostSnap stuff, having those conversations at the lab around what that means, and then for the future of Lightning, and then seeing the Spark rollout while Satoshi rollout, and then seeing kind of Matt's thoughts um, on all this stuff, and then hearing your take on it. Yeah, it's just really fascinating this week around Lightning and the future of it.
Yeah, it's maturing finally.